The last photo I got was like crossing 127, so I was probably somewhere north of 130 at the time. My first car was an '89 525 that had like been in my family forever, and it was beat to hell, but I like little by little fixed it up and then started trying to make it into like a fake E34 M5, right? And I probably wasted a lot of money doing that. I had blown out the differential messing around with it, and the car was inoperable, and so I had to get it towed. Funny enough, I was so convinced that the car was like totaled that I actually, on the side of the street in Boston where it was parked kind of near Harvard's campus, I like literally just started taking the car apart. Like I started taking the door panels out, like just pieces off, and I was like, I'll get it towed. And I realized that actually this might be salvageable, so I started like putting it back together. So I get the car towed, and the guy was a real jerk. You know, he was outsourced from AAA and real jerk. And you know, hoist the car up, we take off, and I'm behind it in my roommate's car from college. And we were on Mount Auburn along the river. And as he took a corner, the car came off the tow truck and like went into a, it wasn't like a telephone pole, but it was like one of those big like transformer boxes that just sits there, right? And I was like, boom, like just like hit it hard. And that's a big stationary mass. And I was just like, I was watching my car go down the street with no driver, then off the road, like hit. It was crazy. And the guy comes out blaming me. He says, whatever he did to this car, it like locked up in the back and it pulled it off the tow truck. And it just turned out he had never like secured the tires down. He just lifted it up and went. And the craziest coincidence is that a guy who watched it happen was like, hey, I saw the whole thing. Not only will I be a witness, but I know the owner of that tow truck company. And with my mom being a lawyer, she like called them. We had that evidence from the guy, the witness statement from the guy, and I ended up getting like twice the value of the car and got to keep it. I've had a couple of M cars. I've had an E36 M3 after my E46. And then I got an E39 M5 finally. I wanted it. I would have kept that car, but it had some misfires. And it spooked me, although nothing was wrong with the car, it just spooked me. Sold to a guy who knew that because he read the codes and he was fine. He got a good deal. I made some money, he got a good deal too. And then I most recently bought an E34 M5, which kind of like came full circle to getting the car of my dreams. But in between that, I've had a couple E30s. I've had two 2002s that have never run. I bought them, never got them running, and passed them on to someone else. And then I had two Bavarias, a 73 and a 74 that I accidentally bought both of on the same day on eBay. It was kind of a mistake. I was trying to like play this bidding game and I ended up winning both cars. So I went to college, and probably around my senior year, I was like, okay, well, I'm working in a lab, I'm TAing some courses, like put this money away, and I even made a little kind of fundraising chart with like, okay, you need 17.5 to get some E46 M3 or M5, E39 M5 at the time. Let's just kind of keep saving. And of course, like the saving didn't really work out, but when I graduated and like the day I got my first job, I was like, I'm gonna get an M car. I don't know what one, but it's gonna be the E39 or it's gonna be the E46 M3. So initially I was going to get an E39 M5 because it was super fast. It was like the newest generation of the E34 M5. I tried to build out of my, shitty 525i from 1989. So actually, I met Ed this way. I test drove one at his dealership, and the problem was I just graduated from college. I had my first job, and so I had income, but I had like not very much credit history, and they wanted me just to get a parental cosign. And my mother was like not having it, and I knew my dad would say, "You're buying what?" So I was like, "What am I gonna do?" So lo and behold, kind of out of nowhere, I find this E46 M3 in Colorado Springs, and I apply, and although I got like literally in the mail a notice that I did not get approved, they said, "Hey, you're approved, come out." And obviously I got that letter in the mail later, but it kind of explains what happened. I later find out that the way I got approved was that the salesman had gone to his credit union, told him that his cousin was applying for a loan, and if they could use his goodwill to approve him. And there's this white guy with apparently his black cousin getting a loan out at some small credit union, but it worked. And I had no ticket purchase. I got up, I went to AirTran the next day. That was still a thing. And because I was still 21, I could fly AirTran U. So I just walked up, said, hey, I'm trying to fly to Denver. And I got a ticket for like $69, hopped on the plane, got there, got a shuttle to Colorado Springs where the car was, and it was there. And so, okay, I'm gonna do this. They got me approved. I was like, this is great. I'm getting my first car. As dumb as I was for buying the car, they asked, hey, do you wanna buy a warranty for like an extra $40 a month? And I was like, whoa, I spend $40 a week at the bar at least, right? Like I can buy a warranty. And I kid you not, by the time I sold that car, which was about 3.5 years after I bought it, I had in the ballpark of $16,000 of receipt totals, of which I had only paid about $3,000. I'd gone through so many different things, like the alternator one day. Then I did what else did I do in that car? The VINwiki repair was about $8,000. So all that gets you to 10. Then like this actuator on the top broke. That was another thing. A lot of bushing work. It added up quickly. But I bought like the bumper to bumper, just covered it all. But eventually I maxed out on the value of the warranty based on what the car pays for. And sometimes it was also like the hours for like the VINwiki. It's too many hours to bill, so I was on the hook for those. But yeah, it was basically I had totaled it out almost. So I hop on the highway and I'm just driving through the night, and it's country road, and it's like, man, it's wide open. Like this is my first M car. It's pretty fast. And I had kind of punched it, but I hadn't really tested the car out yet. And I guess within about maybe an hour and a half of just driving open road, and it was about 2 a.m., I was like, it occurred to me that my friend Matt, who had an E34 M5, had sent me a picture where he was on some highway and he was going at the limiter like 155. And I was like, okay, I wonder with maybe a little downhill assistance if I could get a similar photo to kind of one up him, like even 1 mile an hour. So I wanted to be safe about it, so I said, okay, I'm just gonna take off, and I won't look down at how fast I'm going. I'll just keep hitting my take a picture button on the iPhone. This is before you could hold it down for the like rapid fire shot. And I'm flooring it, and I don't know what I saw. I'm convinced it might have been maybe an internal, like an interior light in the cop car, but I just saw something. It seemed like a little bit of light in the distance outside of the range of my headlights. And I just like hit the brakes. I just slamming. And I know later from the pictures that the last photo I got was like crossing 127, so I was probably somewhere north of 130 at the time. And I'm shooting to a halt, and I see the cop. I immediately just get over to the right lane. He pulls out, I pull over, put the lights on. And I was like, man, I'm definitely going to jail. I've got to call my parents from jail in Kansas, which is going to be a complete shock to them. They're going to be furious and disappointed. But it's happening, and I was relatively calm for all intents and purposes for the circumstances. But he came to my window, rolled it down, and he expressed, I assume you were going a lot faster, but by the time I got a read on you, you were going 40 miles an hour. And I was like, sigh of relief, like, whew. And he asked me a few questions because like he couldn't see my tag and whatnot. And I got very lucky, and he was like, he wrote me a citation for going too slow on the highway and for failure to have a temp tag that was visible because it was behind my tinted window. And I just couldn't believe it. He was like, look, it's a lot of road ahead to Atlanta, Georgia, where you're going. I slow it down because I'm going to radio ahead. So I kept it right at the speed limit the whole way home, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's my first trip in my new M3, and I kept the car for like 3 years. Actually, never got a ticket in it. I learned my lesson. At least that's what I'm going to say on the record.
As a luxury and exotic brand dealer, you know the challenge of putting the right price tag on perfection. Ritz Garage places you directly in touch with our qualified network of new and used dealers with no auction fees. Ritz Garage. Premium cars, premium dealers without premium fees.